Hello! If you saw my last video, and if you didn't, why not, then you would have heard me talking about the iPhone 6s Plus. We did an unboxing and we compared it with the iPhone 4 and the iPhone 5s. And ever since the iPhone was introduced and then followed on by Android phones and Windows phones and all sorts of other touch devices, we've become used to using touch in two dimensions. So we swipe, and we tap and we pinch and we do all sorts of other things. That's become second nature really just in the last 7 years or so. And the introduction of the iPhone 6s and the 6s Plus, there's a new technology called 3D touch. Now I incorrectly in my last video referred to this as force touch, which is something similar but it's different, and you'll find that on new Apple laptops and also the Magic Trackpad 2. But let's talk about 3D touch, which is the reason for this particular video. I'm going to demonstrate 3D touch and what it is, but really the name kind of gives it away. Whereas in the past with those gestures you were working really in two dimensions, you're working across the screen, now you can work into the screen. And this new technology not only detects the fact that you are pushing the screen, but it detects how hard you're pushing the screen, which means that you can have effects which are called peak and pop, and there'll be all sorts of new technologies that come out, or new ideas that come out as a result of this, perhaps new games and new applications. I'm a developer myself, so I'm thinking long and hard about what I can do with this particular technology. And the early releases of the iPhone 6s and 6s Plus have iOS 9, and of course that now introduces some extra facilities for 3D touch, for detecting if you've pushed the screen and how hard you've pushed it. Now I can talk all day about it, but let's have a look. So here's my iPhone 6s Plus, and let's have a look at the gestures that you'd be used to from an iPhone in the past. But what you could do, of course, is to press and hold an icon. Now if I press and hold an icon, you can see that the icons start jiggling about. We've known that for a long time. It lets you then take an icon and move it somewhere else, or not if it's the case of an Apple icon. Let's move Periscope down there. There we go. So that's worked. So we're kind of familiar with that. No problem. But 3D touch works slightly differently. It depends on pushing the device or pushing the screen a little bit harder than you would just to change the order of icons. So let's do that, for example, with the camera icon. So if I press and hold that, then I get, and I can let go now, I've got a shortcut menu on here: take selfie, record video, slow-mo, or take a photo. You can have up to 4 items in this drop-down menu, and of course tapping those would, if I now tap on take selfie, it'll instantly activate the front camera, and you can see, oh yeah, hello, oh, hello. Can you see that? Yes you can. You can see me talking and recording. Not a pretty sight. Now, there are some further additions to this. Of course, not all apps will do this. If I hold, for example, I went into the calculator then, if I press and hold on calculator, I don't know whether you could see that, the screen just darkened for a second, sort of blurred out, and the phone actually does very silently vibrate a couple of times just to let you know that there were no shortcuts. Whereas when there are shortcuts, for example on the App Store, then you can take your finger off straight away after you've pressed, and then we've got search and redeem as two options on that particular one. Okay, so if we now go into an app, let's go into Instagram, and there's some photos that a friend of mine has taken. So if that's my friends, there we go, that's good. Now, if I was to press and hold on one of the titles here, so this is a BBC station, so if I press and hold that, then you can see that, I'll tell my finger where it goes away again, it actually then shows, this is called a peek, the content that is in the feed for that particular user on Instagram. There's my feed, and there's some of my photos. Now if I then push a bit harder, that's called a pop, and it's taking me straight into my profile where you can see all my Instagram photos. So if I go back home again, there's another thing you can do when you do this initial peek. If I press and hold peek, now instead of pushing harder, if I take my finger away it'll disappear as you saw, but if I actually drag upwards, then I can take my finger away and that will stay there, and in addition it'll give me some messages down the bottom. edit profile and send us message in this case. And I can dismiss that just by, there we go, touching it, and it's gone away. So that's actually really useful. As you can imagine, when it comes to things like messages and emails, the peek and pop is really useful, because if I go into messages, I'm sure you don't really want to see people who've been talking to me. If I go into there, you see I can pop up and see people who see messages without actually physically going into them. Because not many apps have these features at the moment. Instagram and Twitter have introduced these. If I go to Twitter, you can see you've got a quick way of posting a new tweet. I'm sure I haven't got it on my phone, but I'm sure Facebook have got something similar in the offing if they haven't already. But as a developer myself, I'm thinking about what I can do with these different icons and how I can set up shortcuts on the screen to quicken things up for users. I was just trying Pacer there, but that hasn't got one, but I would be surprised if that didn't introduce one, for example. It's early days, but that's a quick look at 3D Touch. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this short introduction to 3D Touch. I thought when I heard about it that it was perhaps a little bit of a gimmick, but having now used it, I'm actually finding that I am finding it a useful feature every day on my device. And that can only improve in the future as more iOS devices get the feature, and no doubt there will be other phones, Android phones, that come out with something similar in the future too. It's an interesting diversion from what we're used to, and is it a revolution? I don't know. I'd certainly call it an evolution. I hope you've enjoyed this video. You can keep in touch with me on Twitter. I'm at Andy Clayton. You can also see my photographs at Andy Clayton, Andy JW Clayton, that's on Instagram. And don't forget to check out my blog at andyclayton.uk. If you enjoyed this content, please click and give me a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and there's loads more content to come, and I'll see you next time. Thanks so much for watching.